Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time coming by. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a exploration walkthrough. This is a first impressions type of video on the Fyodor Pavlov tarot. This deck is, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I think the creator's name is actually Fyodor Pavlov. I don't know why I am as excited about this deck as I am, but I'm really, really excited about this. So this was actually originally a Kickstarter deck, and I thought it was beautiful, but I'm pretty sure, did I anti-haul it? Oh no. Oh, I might have anti-hauled it. Apologies, but I did not back it on Kickstarter. When this came out mass market, I was also not 100% sure that I was going to buy it, but the more that I looked at it, the more intrigued I was. And then when I got it in, I was like, I wanted to have you ever had that feeling where you get something in and you want to rip the packaging off? You want to dive into it and chew on it, not literally, but metaphorically. That's how I feel about this deck. I could not even wait to film my recent deck roundup video before I dig into it. I need to look at it. I need to get in up close. I need to do a walkthrough. I need this now. I don't even care if anybody else is interested in this, although I hope you are. But that's not what I'm doing this for me, y'all. So just come along with me for the ride. But I'm really excited. This is a US Games deck, which meant I wasn't able to get it conveniently on Amazon Canada, but I did go to Amazon US and ordered it. I will have a link to it down below if you're interested. I can't remember. I think it might not be on Book Depository yet. If it is, I will also have a Book Depository link down below. I've been trying to get better about sharing both Amazon and Book Depository links in my videos, so I will try to include that if I can get it for you. So anyways, all of that aside, can we just talk for a second about this beautiful production quality? Hello, US Games, up in their game. Oh, see what I did there? Really beautiful box. I love this sort of angled cutout. It's like a different thing to have instead of sort of thumb cutouts for the deck. And I don't normally take a lot of time to appreciate boxes because pull my decks out. I put them in bags. That's what I do. But I just think this is so nice. It feels like an independent deck, just at first touch, if that makes sense. And I think we're starting to see this more and more out of mass market producers. And there's a plus side and a negative side. There's a pro and a con. Okay. The pro is it's really lovely to get such a high quality product. At least at first glance. We'll get into the cards. I know the cards are good quality though, so I'm going to talk about that too, but let me get my rant out of the way first. It's good to feel like we can get such a nice high quality product for less than it would cost us to buy something like this independently. So for comparison's sake, in Canada, for me to have backed the original deck and paid international shipping, I probably would have spent around $100 Canadian, if not slightly more. And that's become fairly common for independent decks for me in Canada. It's a combination of the exchange rate, which drives up the price. Our Canadian dollar is not worth necessarily as much as the US dollar, but our stuff costs the same or more, it seems like. So we don't come out ahead. It's not like, we don't come out ahead. That's the point. But anyway, so I have the exchange rate, which is 30 some odd % on top of whatever the price is. And then shipping to Canada, it's international, it's often more expensive. You get my drift, right? So having something like this, while more expensive than our historical mass market stuff has been, it's still a dramatic savings over what I would have spent for this as an independent product. So I like that mass market publishers are creating these more high quality things, even if it does cost us a little bit more sometimes. It gives, I think, a layer of accessibility to these decks. And there are countries that you can't even get independent decks. A lot of independent deck creators can't ship to countries with certain customs regulations. It's just too much of a headache, so they can't do it. So mass market is wonderful because it just brings decks out to a wider audience. So there's that. Now, the downside of this, of course, is that we are starting to see mass market decks get more expensive. And I think this is sort of a process of we're voting with our dollars in a way. We are sort of demanding higher quality, demanding, better card stock, things like that. And so mass market publishers are responding by creating higher quality things, but they do have to charge more for those. So there's a catch-22. We still want to see those really affordable, accessible decks. I love seeing a good $20 tarot deck. It's amazing. But I'm also excited about this. And so yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. I know that there's mixed feelings about mass market getting more expensive. Some of that is just the nature of the world we live in, but and inflation and such. But I think some is just we're wanting higher quality. And frankly, if you're going to charge me more for something, but you're also going to deliver much, much, much better quality, I'm here for it. Like, I can then choose to buy that or not buy that thing, right? So anyways, all of that to say, I'm pretty impressed with the quality of this deck, and I have already peeked, so I know what the cardstock is like, but I'm going to talk about that. So anyway, so inside we have, so not only have this beautiful detailing on the box, which I think is really awesome, but then when you go inside, you have a hardcover, gorgeous guidebook. Hello? Like, this is what my dollars are going towards. I'm here for it. The only thing this book is missing is a ribbon bookmark. It just looks like the kind of deck, or kind of book rather, excuse me, that should have a ribbon bookmark. It's got a sewn binding. It is really nice quality. I'm super stoked to get into this, but I was really impressed that there's a hardbound guidebook. And then you get the cards, and oh my gosh, for starters, they're gilded, and they're not crappy gilding, which, you know, they're not that sticky gilding. They slide, they didn't come stuck together. There's no flakiness. Now, it will chip and wear like any other gilding, but this is the quality of gilding that I more associate with, again, independent decks. So it's gilded, and then the cardstock is a luscious linen, flexible, bendy cardstock, and the backs have gold foil details. Everything about this deck is so luxurious and lush, and I'm so excited about that, because this is not common in the mass market. Typically, we're used to sort of a cheaper, flimsier cardstock, or a thick, cardboardy, stiff, uncomfortable cardstock. These are the more common things that we're used to, or really super glossy, or if it's matte, it's the kind that chips easy. I mean, we can go on and on. The inside of the box is also really, really well constructed, so it's the cardboard kind, and this kind has, for me in the past, after shipping, it's kind of torn in a spot, so I believe what the publisher did to get around that is they've kind of reinforced the top and the sides with this like extra bit of cardboard or paper. I don't know if you can see that. I think that provides extra sturdiness. I can't be 100% sure, but I don't even want to try to pull this out. Yeah, okay. So yeah, they have reinforced the top and the bottom. Okay, I know this is geeky stuff you probably don't care about, but I'm just pointing out that when you're paying more and you're getting more, that's a different situation than if you're just paying more to pay more, you know? The ribbon bookmark is really lovely. It doesn't feel cheap. It's long enough. I mean, okay. Clearly I'm going to just gush. I paid for this deck. It's like, I'm not, I promise. I'm just excited. Okay, so box, really lovely. Book, really lovely. Cardstock. Okay, so again, really bendy. I'm going to get it really up close so you can see the texturing. Hopefully it'll on the cards. It's a really smooth linen. So yes, it's linen. I can't even get that kind of zippery corduroy sound, you know? So it's a very, very smooth linen. Oh, I was like, what am I seeing? Sorry, I just realized there's just ever so slightly, if the light gets behind the card just so, I can actually see a little bit of shadowing from the foil imprinting. And I wasn't sure what I was seeing at first. I was like, is there spot gloss there? What am I seeing? And up by the sun, I was seeing just a little bit of the shape of that star from the reverse side. So it took me a second. These backs are gorgeous. I think it's really elegant. Anyways, you're going to hear me say a lot of elegant and pretty and gorgeous. But anyway, a little bit about why I got this deck. So this is not my normal aesthetic. Y'all know I like brightly colored decks with like, not so much with the muted colors, which this muted, hello, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I don't typically go for more classically illustrated looking decks, so this Art Nouveau thing, not always my thing, but I love the look of it. It's just that the decks themselves tend to not be decks that I end up connecting or resonating with. What excites me about the Fyodor Pavlov is that we have this very beautiful, elegant art style, this very serious, mature looking deck, and it is a serious and mature deck, don't get me wrong, but it's paired with, or sort of mashed up together with, this amount of, this sort of beautiful diversity and this, I guess, sort of modern lens through which we look at the world, that's sort of overlaid on this classical older imagery. And something about that not only intrigues me, but I think is really special. It makes these beautiful, these aesthetically beautiful sort of old style, what's the word I'm looking for? Like more artistic looking decks feel like they're not all exactly the same. It's not this cookie cutter deck just full of a bunch of like European people. You know what I mean? Like it's like changed. It's brought it forward and made it more accessible, acceptable to more people. And I think that's really, really freaking exciting. And I think that's kind of been the missing piece for me, I think is what I realized. Whenever I reach for a deck that feels a little too, And I love a medieval deck, don't get me wrong. It's just that sometimes I don't feel as connected to that deck because I don't always feel it reflects the world I live in. Sometimes that's fine. Sometimes the theme of the deck, I'm kind of okay. Like I can work with it. But a lot of times these older, like more Art Nouveau-y kind of ones, they don't do that very well. So anyways, I'm really excited about this and I wanted to walk through it. And I feel like I've been talking for a bazillion hours, but it's really only been 10 minutes. Either way, we're going to get into the card by card. I'm going to talk through my thoughts, my opinions, my vibe on what the artwork is showing us. And yeah, let's get into it. So we're starting off with our Fool, which has this lovely, like lighthearted jester vibe. I love that about this card. What I really find exciting about this particular image is there's been some tweaks. First of all, we have, I love that the white rose is in the hair of the main character here and not being held out in front of them. There's something about that that's sort of embracing of, yeah, there's that sort of innocence and purity woven into the image, but not in such a way that it's sort of naivete forward, if that makes sense. A lot of times with the flower up high and more forward, it gives me that vibe. We have a cat instead of a dog, which I think is super charming. I'm loving these little fluff balls on the outfit that, again, brings some of the jester and the ruffled collar, that jester kind of vibe. But the really exciting thing to me about this is the way that the character has pulled off their mask. So there's like a mask, a dark mask that they've pulled off. So there's a sort of implied freeing or freedom element to this card that I think is really cool and powerful and fun to work with. This magician, stunning, love it. I love that the lemniscate is here on this ribbon that wraps around the tall staff that he's holding. I like that it's a staff and not a wand. I think that's a cool take. We still get the positioning, the as above, so below. You still have all the tools on his table. So we have the cup, the sword, and the coins here. But I like that his robe has all these stars on the top half of it. And even his positioning, like he's pulling this energy down and he's manifesting it out onto his table. I just think that's really well executed here to illustrate the idea of the magician. This high priestess is so freaking gorgeous. I love her so much. She's holding the pomegranate. This is very reminiscent of the Oracle at Delphi being on that tripod and the vapors that would come up. That's what that makes me think of. I think it's really, really beautifully illustrated. But I love that this cloak, when she lifts her cloak and sort of pulls it away from her, you can see the stars behind her. So we still have this access to what it is that this sort of mystery that she's holding. I just think that's really, really gorgeous. I love the parchmenty kind of cream colored backgrounds, by the way. There's a fair amount of nudity through this deck. I suppose I should have said that in the beginning, but I suppose if you saw the cover of the book, you were already like out if you're like, no for me. I love this Empress. I love how she's pouring the water out. I love that we get this sort of languid sensuality to her. I like the way her blush is draped around her eyes. She's got her heart and she's holding it out. I think that's really interesting. It's almost as though the heart is what she's nurturing. The heart is what she's caring for. There's so much here, but I really love that we get the strength and the power of the Empress, but we have the sensuality and that languid nature is also forward, and I really appreciate that so much. I like that our Emperor's on his feet. First of all, that's a really great scene. A lot of times we see the Emperor seated and ready for battle, but not necessarily being more action-oriented, and I really like that he's action-oriented here. I like that he's up on this very high sort of pedestal and can see his realm or his territory out beneath him or around him. I like that the ram's head is inscribed on his armor. I think that's super cool, and I like that he's holding a scroll. It's as if his power is more intellectual and not just, there's something about that sphere of power sometimes that feels patriarchal in a interesting way, like this sort of handing down of power, whereas the scroll makes, it could be the exact same thing, but in my brain, I guess I see it more like, you know, earned power, like knowledge and skill, as opposed to just power for power's sake, if that, I don't know if that makes any sense, but it does in my brain. Anyways, I love also the way his feet are here, that they're sort of connected to the earth. They're sort of like an open-toed sandal situation. I don't know why, but I really like that. This Hierophant is pretty classically popey to me, and I think that's fine. I think, to me, what I look at the Hierophant for is, where is society's rules and structures sort of influencing me, the situation? Where are we doing things because they're the way we're supposed to do them? Where should we be questioning that or pushing against that? I think it's really great. I don't know what he's doing with this long frondy thing. And in my brain, I'm like, is that some sort of like thrush? Is there some sort of like, what's happening there? I want to know. But that's what the guidebook's for, so we'll dig into that at the end. And actually, maybe I'll set the Hierophant aside and we can specifically look at that. I really love, not only for its own sake and the gender bendy thing that's happening here in the Lovers, but I really love it for its alchemical state, or sort of nature as well. I don't know. There's something here about a very yin-yang element where we have the feminine in the masculine and the masculine in the feminine. And the way that those are blended, I think, is really cool and powerful. I really, really love that. I like that this character has the arrow and this one the apple. And it just feels magical to me, very potent and inclusive in a really interesting new way. Inclusivity with nudity, particularly when we see different gendered bodies represented, I think its power can't be understated. I think it has a lot to say. And the fact that this is a mass market published deck with this image intact is really encouraging to me. The Chariot. This is really great. I don't know. I just love it. I love the yellow. Now, partly I love the yellow. I'm just realizing, are they all yellow? I don't think they are, right? No. We got blue. We've got red. This excites me, actually. I'm realizing because every time I see color so specifically applied, I sometimes get chakra vibes. And I was excited about the yellow for that reason, because yellow and the Chariot, because the Chariot card to me is very much associated with the solar plexus and that sort of confident, striving forward, pushing forward energy. And so seeing the splash of yellow here is really awesome for me, personally anyways. Yeah, I love this image. I think it's great. Oh, I love this sort of wine color here in the strength card. I love that she's armored, and I love that we have a little bit of ferocity on the part of this. This is a wolf, right, y'all? Somebody help me. I like that we have the ferocity, but also the flowers. And we have this blending of sort of strength and softness, or ferocity and softness. And I love seeing those two things sort of intertwine. We do have a Ouroboros situation happening in the belt, which is typical for the strength card, and I love that. Her shoes literally are giving me some serious She-Ra vibes, which, you know, I mean, I'm here for it. I love it. I think it's great. I love this hermit so much. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The shape of this hermit lantern gives me just a moment, a flash of Little Bo Peep in my brain, maybe combined with her outfit. I'm not entirely sure. But I love the wisdom seeker here. I love that she has a book and the crow on her shoulder. To me, it's like she's literally going off on a journey with her lamp to do some introspective work. Like, she's got her journal. She's ready to reflect. She's ready to learn and grow. There's a lot there about knowledge and wisdom. She is a little young, in my opinion. I love to see a really wizened old hermit. So I'm a little bummed that she's seems to be much younger. But I love the image overall. Really, 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 really beautiful. This Wheel of Fortune is awesome to me. I love that we can clearly see the four elements here. We can see earth, fire, air, and water. So beautifully displayed. I love that we have a figure, sort of, we imagine that this is sort of the goddess of fortune or something, that is turning the wheel and deciding which direction it's going to go at any one moment. I like that it feels very divine in its vibe. I love that. Yeah, I appreciate it. Here we have the Justice card, and we have, oh, interesting. Oh, I need to look. So this is Justicia something. Distribute. I need to know what this means right now. I can't wait. I'm sorry. I'm really curious. I can't wait. Please let it be in the guidebook, or I'm going to be super sad. Here we go. The banner wrapped around her is emblazoned with a quote from Cicero: "Justice renders to everyone his due." Oh, I love that. Oh my God. Okay, we're going to look at the guidebook more later, but I'm so excited about it. Okay, anyway, I really love this. Have I mentioned that? I don't know. I'm excited about this deck. I'm excited about it. And for something in this style, that wasn't expected from me, so I'm enjoying the thrill of it. The Hanged Man here is pretty intense. We really get that element of the Hanged Man being discomfort and uncomfortable. I think sometimes the Hanged Man can look a little too blissed out, and I'm like, yeah, but like, really though, we're uncomfortable here, right? Like, it's not a comfortable feeling. The Hanged Man is not only discomfort in the waiting and in the suspension and in the pause, but also just general discomfort, having to give something up that we don't want to. There's an unpleasantness there that I think sometimes gets overlooked or sort of glossed over, and I think it's an important aspect to the card that we don't want to completely lose. The Death card. Oh, this is something. I feel like this is going to be a deck that I want to use for like love and romance readings. And yeah, I'm saying that while she's like embracing death, but I just think that's a really beautiful image. I like the idea. To some degree, there's multiple ways to look at this card, right? We can see her as embracing death, as like she's ready and she's going with him, you know, gratefully and with a form of acceptance, or it could be her pleading with death, like just begging, please don't, I'm not ready yet. And either of these is so potent in a reading, right? Because death is our relationship with letting go. Are we we need to. It's time. Sometimes it's long past time. But like, are we fighting it or are we going with it? Are we accepting it or are we, trying to bargain? At what point are we allowing change to occur? It's really a powerful image to me. I love that he's being very tender with her. And yeah, I really like that. But I like the time hourglass here. There's a crown. You get the idea that like who you are doesn't matter. When death comes, it comes. It's time, right? Really powerful. I'm going to say that a lot, but I just think this is a very well thought out deck. Temperance is stunning. I love it. I love when we see, this is really great actually, because we have a vessel or a container down here that's having water poured into it. Typically with temperance, we'll see the same thing kind of going back and forth, but I like the idea of tempering something by actually kind of diluting it, like water into wine is a form of tempering the wine. And I think that having two different kinds of vessels where one is clearly being poured into the other, it brings that meaning back to mind for me anyway. I also have a personal fondness for the way that this rushing water is calming right where it's kind of going in front of the temperance angel's foot. I did something very similar with water to illustrate the concept of temperance in my own deck. So that's a very cool thing to see in another deck. That excites me a little bit. Mine had little rocks and like a bit of a dam, creating that sort of moderation of the water, but I hear it's sort of just a thing. Anyways, okay. This devil card is so provocative to me, like provocative in the way that it like makes me uncomfortable in multiple ways to look at it, but it's also got a sort of unabandoned, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like unembarrassed or unabashed. I don't know what the right word is. Sexuality to it, right? There's they're really like worshiping at this devil's temple, throne, whatever. Like, what do you call that? And the way that this sort of rope bondage is being used is really interesting to me and gives a lot of food for thought. I think it's interesting how one of them is much more securely bound, and it looks as though this figure here is trying to free themselves, whereas this one is like all in it. They're like in it. This person's like, get me out of here, So you get to see kind of both of those takes on this card and like how they're approaching it. Really, really interesting. I really like it actually, but I think it could be confronting in some cases for sure. Oh, this cardstock feels like it's going to feel so comfy to shuffle. I can't wait. Okay, the tower. I do really love when a tower has all of this like ocean waves crashing against. I love that vibe. I think it's super interesting how the figure falling out of the tower has wings, but they're like choosing not to fly. I think that's incredibly interesting, and it tells us how we're relating to our tower experience. We know that a tower is sort of like life feels like it's crashing down, but how we handle that moment is going to really determine what it's like to rebuild, right? This person is falling, sure, but they're forgetting the resources they have already. They're forgetting their wings. Their wings are still with them. They could choose to fly, but they're letting themselves fall. They're sort of in the drama of the moment, and they're not empowering themselves to change their outcome. And that surrendering of power, I think, is something we see a lot, actually, in tower card moments, where our temptation is to sort of throw our hands up and go, well, I guess everything's falling apart then, and not to really take it in our own hands. So I think that's really cool. The star. This is the same cover that is on the book, just like the High Priestess was the cover on the box. I love this star card. It looks really calm and soothing to me. I like the lotus. I like the cattails. I like it all. I like it all. I think it's beautiful. Love the moon. I love the kind face on the moon. We have that sort of wildness in the wolf, and we have that sort of darkness and mystery. We have the little owl there. So the path is dark, it's shadowed, but it's not unkind. It's not fully welcoming. There's a wildness, like I said, to it, a little bit of abandon, but it's not, it's not terrifying, which sometimes moon cards can be pretty scary. The sun. I love that the figure here is topless. Now, I have kind of strong feelings that have developed over time based on how I see the sun card in like the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, for example, with the naked baby on the horse. And that image gets a lot of flack in the community, actually. Oh, not another naked baby on a horse. Like, we hear it all the time. But actually, the fact that the baby is both a baby and naked is, to me, really an important reading point, because that brings to mind my personal way of working with the sun card, which has a lot to do with feeling safe enough to be yourself, to sort of unclothe yourself, to be seen for who you are, not just the trappings that you put on yourself. This is interesting because I feel like we've caught somebody, not caught, but we're seeing somebody in the middle of that process. So they're beginning to sort of disrobe. They've still got a lot of the trappings. They're still sort of doing the thing, but their top half is exposed to the full light of the sun. So they're beginning to sort of feel like they have that safety. And it's interesting because this wall doesn't fully contain them, which could also be read into, I look for that sort of container or that safe space feeling to the sun card, and we don't fully have that here, which is interesting. That could be why they're only like half exposed here. But again, it's just something that I kind of think about when I look at a sun card. Judgment. This feels much more intense, but I love that we have figures of different ages here. We have a much older woman in the back. We have a guy here. Everybody's sort of clinging onto the robes of this figure. And to me, that feels a little graspy. I'm not sure I love the way that this is depicted. I would be curious to read more about it in the guidebook. I might pull this one aside too to take a look, because to me, it's almost like they're like begging for or like pleading for, that sort of opportunity to level up into that next phase of their existence. Whereas I think it's kind of an invitation sort of energy. It's a calling. You're being welcomed forward to take that step. Now you can choose to ignore it, but it's an invitational energy. So I'm curious what Fyodor has to say in the guidebook about this one. So I'm going to set that one aside. The world. I love this. I am so curious why. And I love me some curvy fat bodies in tarot. I truly do. But I'm curious. And if anybody knows why this is the thing, I'm curious why. But there seems to be a thing where if there's going to be like a really voluptuous, curvy, like fat-bodied, curvy-bodied person in a tarot, it's going to show up in the world card. And I'm just wondering why. I'm wondering what connection that is for people who make that choice. I'm not saying it's a bad choice. I love to see it, but I'm just curious why that's the spot. Like there's other sort of tropes we see in these decks where we will see like, say, ability diversity we'll see in like the strength card. That's like a trope, right? And I can understand. I don't love that that happens so repeatedly in the same spot, but I can kind of get what the connection is, but I don't get it for the world card. I feel like I'm missing something, like everybody else is in on the joke but me kind of thing. But I love this image. I love how abundant the image is. We have all these like pumpkins and sort of this almost cornucopia vibe with all these abundant flowers and fruits and vegetables kind of surrounding the central figure. And I love that. I love that there's again, that abundant feeling, and seeing that kind of like abundance, particularly with like food paired with a larger bodied person, is I think really decadent and lovely. And I'm so happy that it's there. So I really do love this image. Again, the prior was more just a question because I'm curious where that connection is. But yeah, I really do love this image. And I love the shape of her in general. I think she's beautiful. So we have our Ace of Wands, very typical in a way, but I love that there's so much obvious growth on the central wand here, and I love the flames coming out the top. And you know what I'm noticing as I'm walking through this? I don't think once I've complained about a lack of color. It's almost like it doesn't matter to me in this deck, which almost never happens. Usually I'm commenting on it, and I don't find myself even really thinking about the lack of color, which to me is so telling because I have to really like a fairly muted or understated or limited color palette deck to like not even think about it much. And I just realized I haven't really been thinking about it much, and there's almost no color at all on this card. And even the fire, I knew that was fire, even though it wasn't colored. It's very interesting. Love this Two of Wands. I love to see maps in Two of Wands as well as globes. I love the idea that we see sort of plans being made for the future and where we're going to travel to, what we're going to do, what we're going to accomplish. I think this is gorgeous. I love it. No complaints. Love it. Think it's great. This Three of Wands, I feel like we get more of the feeling of embarking. That's my favorite word for the Three of Wands is embark. But I love the idea that we get the idea that we're setting off on a journey. This isn't my favorite way to show the Three of Wands. I prefer to see obvious signs that this person's going to, not just sending their ships out. I want them to be on the ship, you know. That's just a personal preference. But I still like this card. It's pretty. And I'm just noticing, I know I said I wasn't going to comment on color. I'm just noticing that we seem to have this sort of green color, this sort of mustardy green or olivey green. What's the word for that? But anyways, that seems to be the consistent color we're seeing through the wand suit, which is an interesting choice since normally we would see green with, say, the earthly suit, the pentacle suit. But I like that there's an irreverent association with color here. I like it. Anyway. Love the Four of Wands, very Rider-Waite-Smith clone-ish, this image. I'm digging it. I like that we have multiple genders in the Five of Wands. I think that's fantastic. Like to see it. Happy about it. Six of Wands looks like a feminine figure riding a horse, which is incredible. Love it. Look how strong and like badassy this image is. It's not just like a girl in a pretty dress on a horse, you know, getting all the accolades. You know what I mean? It's like this girl went out into battle. She fought. She won. She's triumphant. She's receiving the right praise. It's very powerful, that image. Ooh, I like that. I love the sort of determination in this Seven of Wands. That's awesome. I had a camera issue where I got cut off, and I looked up actually while that happened and I got ready to restart. I looked up what the Latin was here on the Eight of Wands, and it's fortune favors the bold. That is what that says in, I'm pretty sure, Latin, which I love. I think that's fantastic for the Eight of Wands and the idea of like being in the momentum of the moment. Love that. Yes. Okay. So I love that in the Nine of Wands here we see real injury, real odds stacked against our central character here. The leg is missing, it's been bandaged, but we also have active wounding here in the arm. So we see that sort of like life's been hard, but they're still sticking through, right? The Ten of Wands is great because we don't see this person actually buckling under the load they carry. They're still carrying it. It might be a bit much, but I do think it's really super interesting that they're only carrying all of these wands with their left arm. So it's like, either maybe they don't have a right arm. I didn't even think about that until just now. But like assuming that they have another arm to use, they could actually spread out their load and perhaps carry it even easier than they are now. So it's kind of to me a reminder that we have resources and we may not be making use of them. Lovely Page of Wands, real minstrel vibes here. Love it. Yes, love this Knight of Wands. Again, love the ferocity and the strength. When we see a feminine presenting character like this, and she looks like she's a little bit larger bodied as well, love to see it. But in general, she just seems like she's really active and in the thick of the moment. This Queen of Wands to me seems a little conservative. And I don't know the right way to describe this, but I feel like the Queen of Wands is so sort of confidence forward that I almost want to see her in something more revealing, which is interesting. And what does that say about the way that I view confidence? That's interesting. But just a thought, you know, that she just seems a little bit like closed off in her garb. But that's something that I think I want to examine myself because that's an interesting sort of place my brain went with that. But her posture is very direct. She's very forward facing. She has her little cat friend here. I think that's really lovely. The King of Wands. Here we have our sphere of power, but it's growing. It's got a plant growing out of it or something, which is interesting. I like too, he is also standing in front of the throne, not just sitting in it, which is interesting. And I think I like that. I'm just thinking out loud, like thinking as I'm talking. So that's it for the wands soon. Now the cups are blue. Oh, thank goodness. I feel like I'm okay with the wands being green, I think, but the cups being another color might have been a little harder for me. So I'm glad that they're blue because I love blue with water, just saying. This ace is gorgeous. Love the lilies and lotuses, excuse me, and the lily pads. Love that. What a sweet Two of Cups. I think I've seen this image before on videos or promotions for the deck or something. And I love this. I love that it's sweet and young and has that like young love, new love sort of vibe to it. But of course, I specifically love that it's two boys. We often get more representation, I feel like, of girls together than we do of boys together. So I like that. Oh, I love this Three of Cups. I love the maypole vision, like the fact that they're dancing the maypole dance, but they're also celebrating and having a good time. Love that each one of them looks very different from each other. I always look for that in my Three of Cups. Four of Cups. I like that he doesn't have to look bored here. Sometimes the Four of Cups looks a little bored, and he can look bold. Excuse me, he can look bored. I just said bold. He can look bored if you want to see it that way, but he looks more neutral in his expression, so I can read that if I want the boredom, or I can stick with sort of the emotional satiety or stability, which I sometimes read this card as. I love all the draping fabric. There's something about the draping fabric in general in this deck that I really like and enjoy. And especially here, I really enjoy it. I like that there's a castle visible in the distance. We have the 3 spilled cups, the 2 upright. It's very Rider-Waite-Smith that way. And I haven't commented on it before, but I love how the banners, bits of the card art come outside of the border. It just makes the borders feel so intentionally a part of the artwork, and I love it when decks do that. It 100% kills any remote desire I might have to make a deck borderless when the art goes outside the border. Love it. I think this is such a sweet Six of Cups. I think that we see a much bigger age disparity between the two here on the card, and I love that. But I love the whimsy of it and the sweetness of it. It's like that safe moment, right? So beautiful. Oh, I love that Seven of Cups. That's gorgeous. Big fan. Love it. Oh, and the 8 too. I love all the rushing water. I love that they're sort of having to climb up, that it's visible they're climbing up. I know that's a very common like Rider-Waite-Smith thing, but I just think it's really executed in a neat way here. The 9 of Cups. Well, okay, yeah, it's a dude with a bunch of wine. Y'all know how I am. But I will point out that he looks like he's toasting and that he's not seated at the table necessarily by himself. There's enough food there for many people. It looks like he's at a feast and he's toasting. And toasting is, to me, like a moment to express gratitude and appreciation for others. It's not self-congratulatory. Typically, toasts are usually about someone else. Like we're saying, you know, we're toasting to the group, right? But it's very rarely a self-focused thing, and I really love that. It's like that moment to experience the gratitude for what brought you here, what got you to this place. I think I like it, even if it's a dude with a bunch of wine. Such a sweet family situation in the Ten of Cups. I love this. I think that's really sweet. I love it. I love it. The Page of Cups. I love that she's got this like art sketchbook, the paintbrushes at her belt, and the paint palette. This reminds me a lot, actually, of the Robin Wood Tarot. Okay, I had to stop and go get it and get the card because this is what I'm talking about. So the Page of Cups in the Robin Wood Tarot has this little artist easel attached to their belt. It's one of the things I actually love the most about the pages in the Robin Wood Tarot, which is the deck with these backs, by the way. I love that because it immediately brings to mind what the Page of Cups is all about, the creativity. It makes me wonder if there's a similar correlation with the other pages. So I'm going to go back to the Page of Fire real quick, or Page of Wands, and see. Okay, so the Page of Wands in this case has a musical instrument, whereas in the Robin Wood, it's firecrackers at their belt. At least that's what I think that is. So yeah, just curious though. That's cool. Anyway, I don't know. I just had to have that moment. All right. The Knight of Cups, yes, love this. He looks like a Knight of Cups. I don't know how else to explain that, but he does. Oh, the Queen of Cups is pregnant. I kind of love that. I think that works so much better in some ways than the Empress being pregnant. Just because the Queen of Cups is sort of that really mom, comforting, loving, nurturing figure. I like that. That King of Cups and this Queen of Cups, I mean, he looks so gay in the best possible way. I don't know how else to express that. I don't know if it's his physical posture or what it is, but these two look like they are like the best of friends. I don't see them as a couple. Maybe I should. I don't know. What does it say about me? I don't know, but I love that. I also love the way that they pair. And actually, again, I'm curious, did I miss that in the King and Queen of Fire? Let's just see how they look as a couple. See, yeah, they don't look, but that's normal for the Queen and King of Fire. They typically don't look as connected to each other. I do like that the King and Queen of Cups are looking at one another. I think that's really lovely. Okay, so swords are red, or that's their splash of color. We have our ace, very Rider-Waite-Smith. This is so interesting to me because I think it really speaks to what's happening in the Two of Swords. The cross sword, sure, that I get where they're going with that, but here it's the how do I describe this? Okay, so what I see is this. The way he's holding this sword is what's blocking his vision, and then there's this sword. Each one of them is a completely different position, implying to me completely different choices. Like, we could go this way or we could go that way kind of thing. They're different. They're not like, they don't look like they're the same choice that you're trying to choose between, which also implies that there's pros and cons to either, and it kind of speaks to me to the sort of hang up we get about like, what are we going to do? You know, what's going to be the best choice? And maybe the fact that we're so fixated on just these two choices is why we can't see clearly. So maybe we need to like think about a third choice. I don't know. Again, maybe it's not meant to be that deep, but that's what I get. The Three of Swords, biological heart, kind of dig it. It's very classic Rider-Waite-Smith style otherwise though. So nothing really exciting to point out here. Oh, except I think this is interesting. The central heart has sort of what looks like a bandage tied around it, which is sort of kind of falling apart around the edges here. It's as if we're in the process of starting to maybe heal or work on healing. I think that's an interesting thing for sure. And I'm not quite sure, but there's like these, okay, let me see if I can explain. Maybe somebody will know. But there's this like little part here that doesn't look like it's part of the biological heart. And this part here that almost looks like a smushed up flower slapped onto it, maybe a bandage. I'm just curious. What do you guys see that as? Maybe I'll pull that aside to check the book just in case. Four of Swords. I like the rest here, but we've got the sword at the ready just in case. Five of Swords. Classic Rider-Waite-Smith style. The Six of Swords. Swords are in the boat. I always note whether the swords are in the boat or out of the boat. Seven of Swords. We haven't dropped any yet. The Eight of Swords. This is lovely. I like to usually see some evidence that she could clearly get free, and it's not as obvious, but it's a really beautiful card. And the Nine of Swords, we've got both bats and owls sort of flying in. And the Ten of Swords. We're bleeding, but we're not on the ground. So maybe it's not that bad after all. Page of Swords. Looks like he's cleaning a blade. So he's taking care of his tools. Very squire energy here for sure. He might be actually taking care of the tools of the knight that he's studying under. Knight of Swords. I love, are all the knights female or feminine presenting? I think they might be. Let's just see. So the Knight of Wands was, yes. And the Knight of Cups, the Knight of Cups was a masculine presenting, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Okay. So it's not all female necessarily or feminine presenting. Ooh, I love this queen so much. Oh my God, she's awesome. She's got spurs on her boots. How appropriate is that for the Queen of Swords? Like her words have barbs, right? Oof. The King of Swords. Love it. And again, let's just see. So they are kind of, if I pull them in the same order that I pulled the others, then they're kind of back to back. I find that really interesting. It'd be cool to see all the court pairs laid out next to each other, just to see their different energetic qualities as a couple. Now we're into the coins. I like that we have a golden color here. I think that really works. The 2, yes. I love this sort of balancy, delicate balance vibe. Love the teaching energy in the 3. I think that's really great. I like this 4 because she's got her back to us and she's almost like guarding her wealth from these openings, like the windows, but she's not actually protecting anything because it'd be easy to walk up and snatch those out of the back, you know, behind her. The 5, this looks like somebody, like a boy maybe, is helping this person get to the door for help, which I think is really an interesting take. I like that. The 6. 7, I like that we're planting seeds. We're sort of working the earth. We're going to see how it turns out. The 8, I really like blacksmithery in the 8 of Pentacles. I always have, so that's a trope I really enjoy. The 9. The 10, that is just beautiful. You really get the feeling of legacy and family and tradition here. Really strong. Love that. Love this Page of Coins. I think because she reminds me of Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. Like she's got that kind of like more masculine, like sort of, I don't know, body shape or like demeanor or something about her. But it doesn't necessarily say anything about who she is as a person or like how she identifies or anything like that. So you can't make assumptions, but it's interesting, right? Yay! I love that the Knight of Coins is in a wheelchair and it's this medieval, like old fashioned, old, I can never think of the right words for this, you guys. Older style wheelchair. So it feels like it doesn't pull us out of the world to see it. That's exactly what that would have looked like. I love it. This would make such a great like Final Fantasy tarot. Anyways. And then we have the Queen of Coins. This is freaking fantastic. I love that she has fresh baked bread here, or that's what that is, right? Yeah, fresh baked bread. I love all the different sort of cultural garb we see throughout the entire deck. We really get the feeling of different, like this kind of melting pot sort of energy, which I love. I love that everything's kind of got its own influence. It's awesome. But I love the bread, specifically for the Queen of Coins, because she is the person that will make sure everybody has a nice hot meal, you know? And so it's just perfect for her energy to me. And then we have the King of Coins. And again, she's sort of forward and he's focused. So she's sort of focused on taking care of everybody and he's sort of focused on his sort of money and wealth. And that kind of makes sense. Okay, I'm going to do the thing because I said I wanted to. I think I'm going to need to zoom out a bit. So let's zoom out a bit and let's just see what all the different couples look like because I'm just curious and I want to see. Okay, so there's our Pentacles couple. There's our Wands couple. There's our Cups couple. And then there's our Swords. Let's just bring them back down into the frame a little bit better. Very, very different vibes, right? Very different vibes. The only ones that are really looking exclusively at each other are the cups, right? Both the wands and the pentacles. I mean, I feel like in the wands, he's sort of more focused on her and she's like looking forward. And here he's focused on his own stuff and she's focused forward, so towards the viewer. And then in the swords, they're both like in their own world doing their own thing. I think that's pretty cool. All right, so I cannot wait to shuffle this. I've got a few cards pulled aside that I want to do some looking up in the guidebook. I have the Hierophant, the Judgment card, and the Three of Swords. I just kind of want to see what those look like, what those entries look like. So let's give it a shuffle. It feels so beautiful to handle this deck already, and I haven't shuffled it, but it's linen. I'm so excited. All right. Oh, it's such a comfy, cozy, gentle shuffle. It doesn't feel flimsy, but it feels really bendy. And it's not as slippery as some linen cardstock can be. It's got some slide, like it's not going to resist you at all, but it doesn't feel so slippery that it's like falling out of my hands. Oh, it's so good. I hope US Games does some more decks in this cardstock because that is glorious. It's so nice. Oh, it's so great. I love linen so much. Okay, so that's what that, oh, it just fans so beautifully. Okay, so let me pile these up. And for now, I'm going to just pop them back in the box so that they're out of the way. And then let's take a look at the guidebook. So I'm going to get us zoomed back in a bit here. And let's take a peek. So again, hardbound, really nice. I'm just obsessed. Okay, let's take a peek. So we have an introduction, major, minor, wands, cups, swords, coins, spreads, and a little bit about the artist. So we have introduction to the Pavlov Tarot. And then we have the card write-ups. This is stitch bound. So it's, again, really lovely construction here. Let me take a look first at the Hierophant because, yeah, I'm just curious. So let me pull the Hierophant card out. So this is a card I struggled with quite a bit. So I'm reading the guidebook now because I don't really like what it stands for. The interpretation of the Hierophant that I've read relate to dogmatism, tradition, morality, a lot of things that I struggled to find a personal point of reference with. A short while after finishing the art for this card, I pulled the Hierophant as a signifier for myself in an end-of-the-year reading. It was my first year immersing myself fully in the creation of the deck and diving deep into the lore and learning of the tarot. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. That was how I saw the Hierophant then, and how he retroactively became more accessible to me. There is definitely a religious aspect to my representation that harkens to Christianity, but I did my best to strip the art of direct references and symbols that definitely point to any one religion. The robes are simple. The palm frond stands for peace and progress. The tome is unidentifiable. My focus with this card was on knowledge and learning. The Hierophant is made wise by the experience of his years. His stole bears the traditional symbolic keys. So there's keys here. I thought those were crosses at first, but those are keys. That unlock the path to knowledge, and in his hand he holds a book. A light shines upon him and his disciples. The Hierophant is still representative of social and academic authority and thus can be conservative, dogmatic, and conformist. I totally agree with this. He can be interpreted as an educator, a religious figure, or a moral authority constraining the querent. But he can also be a positive influence. Also agree with this. A seeker of enlightenment and a wise figure willing and ready to help and to teach. Or he can indicate a journey of learning, self-improvement, and intellectual and moral advancement. My accent color choices were meant to support that bright, positive aspect of the card. I love that. Okay, so quick glance. I probably won't read the whole thing for judgment because I'm just curious what the take on it is. Let's see. I was thinking of Charon, Hades' ferryman who gathers souls and carries them across to the underworld. Okay. The people around appear in distress because self-criticism is difficult and frequently painful, but I chose light colors for this card as a sign of hope and newness. So he's leaning into the fact that we don't always think that we are worthy maybe of going to that next step. I have to read the whole thing. I can't help. I'm sorry. This is long, whatever. We're rolling with it. This card developed a little differently from the rest. Before I drew the cards at their full size, I would sketch out the composition in a small thumbnail drawing with a bunch of notes. So for judgment, I had sketched out a relatively traditional Smith-Waite-inspired design, complete with 3 figures popping out of their graves, tombstones and all, with parting clouds and beribboned trumpets crossed above them. It was a good design, very classical and attractive, and I was content enough with it. But when I went to bed that night, it just didn't feel right. The next morning, as I was cutting my paper down to size, I opened my sketchbook and drew a completely different thumbnail, which resulted in the card you see. Simpler and somewhat different from the traditional Smith-Waite-inspired cards, and in the end, far closer to my reading of the card. If justice is the card of our accountability to society, which I agree with, judgment is the card of our accountability to ourselves. Oh my God, yes! Yes. Okay, sorry. I'm excited. That's kind of how I view it. It's like us, we have this invitation to sort of step into the highest form of ourself, to be better, to do better. Anyway, okay. It is intuitive and it looks within rather than without. It puts a mirror up to our nature impassively and lets us stand up to our own scrutiny and criticism. Our job then is to be honest with ourselves and be confident in having done our best to be able to withstand that self-evaluation. I did not want to include an explicitly angelic figure because it implies the presence of a god. Our greatest judge should be ourselves, not some vague outside lofty power. Ah, okay. But I did include a figure that can be interpreted in many different ways. I was thinking of Charon, Hades' ferryman, who gathers souls and carries them across to the underworld, holding a staff that could in fact be his oar. He is impartial and eternal. He cannot be bribed or cajoled, and he will always be there to do his job. But the figure could also be an angel to those who wish. They can be God or death or a personification of judgment itself. All of that is up to the individual reader, and the figure's affiliation is left intentionally vague. The people around appear in distress because self-criticism is difficult and frequently painful, but I chose light colors for the card as a sign of hope and newness. Oh my gosh. Okay, so good. Okay, so that really helps me with those cards. And this was the only other one. I was just curious about what's happening here, just in case I'm probably reading too much into it, to be frank, but I am curious what the creator has to say about it. Aside from loving the fleshy gristleness of an anatomic heart, I think the representation lends literal rawness to the feelings the card is meant to represent. Yes, agree. I don't think there's anything about any bandages or anything. Yeah. Yep, so it's just pretty much a basic Three of Swords. I think it's just the way I was viewing this anatomical heart that looked almost like, I don't know. I need to look at another image of an anatomical heart because it looked like not quite what I remembered for those spots. But anyway, all right. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, sorry, the rest of the guidebook. Hold on, I got distracted. In the back, I think, are spreads. Was it the back? Yeah, in the back. Oh, there's a Celtic cross. There is a relationship spread, an identity, and a possibilities spread. So 4 spreads in the back to work with the cards. Oh my gosh, y'all. This is so beautiful. I'm so happy I have this. I'm going to have to find the perfect Peggy bag for it. I think this is going to be a go-to for me for love and relationship readings, the same way that I would reach for, any sort of soft, it feels like my Victorian romantic kind of thing. I don't even know if that makes sense, but it does to me. Like, it's like a serious, elegant, beautiful, flowy, romanticized kind of deck, but just, and classical and beautiful. And did I say beautiful? It's so beautiful. I'm really excited about this. I love this flexible linen cardstock. Every detail is attended to. Really, really well done to US Games on the production quality. I think it's just gorgeous. Now, can you please start putting your stuff in Amazon Canada? Please, please, please. Thank you. Anyways, but I love this. This is absolutely incredible. And yeah, I highly recommend if you are attracted to it. Obviously you do you, whatever sounds good, but I'm really glad that I have the mass market version of this deck because I just think it's just so well done. I have no idea what the quality was like on the independent. Hopefully just as good, but this is just incredible. And I think this was around $50 Canadian. In fact, it should say, right? Doesn't it say usually? Oh, maybe not anymore. They might not do that because inflation. But it doesn't say. It doesn't say. But I feel like that's what it was Canadian, which means it's what? Or maybe that was closer to what the price was US, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I can't remember. It might have been around 45 US. Again, pretty close to independent prices for this one, if I recall, but free shipping, or close to free shipping. I had to bring it in from the States, but closer. Anyway, I'm just babbling because I just don't want to stop talking about it. It's so great. Anyways, I should get off of here. Thank you guys so much for coming with me while I took a tour through these cards. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I will talk to you all very, very soon. Until then, may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye.